Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WhickTV, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. And tonight we have a show for you, and you're going to enjoy it, okay? I promise you, this was not generated by AI. The topic is not AI, and none of the guests are AI. This is all authentic, homegrown, if you will. Uh, Panels and panelists and opinions. We're going to be talking about AI art tonight. Recently, painting by the title Unfinished by the artist now deceased Keith Haring was finished by AI. Someone used AI to finish the painting. This caused a bit of an uproar, a stir, if you will. People called it a desecration. People called it soulless. Evidence that AI art is soulless. And I was curious if that was true. So I gathered a team together, and tonight we're going to be talking about that. Is AI art actually art? What are some pros with it? What are some cons with it? Is it going to be the destruction of creativity? We'll find that out tonight. Uh, First, we're going to allow these wonderful gentlemen to introduce themselves and give us their opening thoughts. And we're going to start with someone who's coming back for the second time. Blue, go ahead. Give us your thoughts here. Oh,
You're
no.
muted, Blue.
You're
You're
muted.
muted. Oh, no. Maybe if he had an AI.
In
no.
Discord.
False start.
There you go.
All right. Hey everyone. Embarrassing start, but I'm Blue. I'm just a private citizen, so you won't find me streaming. But I'm excited to talk about AI art here. I think it's a much more complicated topic than AI girlfriends, which is what I was on for last time. Um, just reacting to the tweet. I think it was a desecration, but one in the name of satire. And the way that people feel about it, I think, has a lot to do with how they feel about the tool. Uh, Someone could finish the painting by hand. Someone could finish the painting with AI, and I think people would feel the same way. The reason we blame AI is because it's less transparently manipulated by humans than something like Photoshop or clipping faces out of a copyrighted magazine in order to make a collage. So my overall position on this panel is going to be a pro AI position, um, with some limitations, right? Using AI the wrong way is bad. Making an AI the wrong way is probably bad by definition. But I haven't seen people use AIs or make AIs in ways that people haven't used or made other tools. So I'm definitely excited to hear arguments that I haven't heard before on this panel. I think we got smart enough people that will come up with some wild shit to talk about. But until then, I'm unconvinced that this is the end of art.
Okay, well, I appreciate your confidence that these are going to be intelligent arguments. We'll find out. Thank you for being here again. We'll get into it as we go. Next up, we have Dingo, the author and producer of the Destiny Iceberg. Go ahead, Dingo. Give us your thoughts.
Hey guys, it's me, Dingo. Do videos on streamer politics. We got a 2-hour-long video coming out tomorrow. It's gonna be big. It's gonna be great. Make sure to keep an eye on Dingo posting on Twitter for that one. But I guess getting to the root, I'll focus specifically on the painting because I assume that's where we're gonna start. It is disrespectful. We have to start there. It is kind of super disrespectful. But I think I probably agree with Blue. That's the point. It's sort of like I'll probably invoke another art piece. I don't know if anyone here has heard of Piss Christ, but it's a 1987 photograph. And basically it just depicts a small plastic crucifix submerged in a small glass tank of the artist's urine. And the guy who made it was a Catholic, right? It's demonstrating a broader artistic point about society's views on Christianity. And I think this art piece does the same thing. There is an artistic merit to disrespecting something. And art, of course, doesn't necessarily lose its status of being art depending on how much effort is invested in it. So I would just say that it is disrespectful, that is true. But it's also important to realize that the backlash, the response, people freaking the hell out, that's kind of part of the point it's making. And when you kind of take this hardline stance against it, in a way, you're kind of siding with it. So that's my starting opposition.
Well, thank you for being here, and we'll get into it as we go. Next up, no stranger to the channel, someone who's been on more times than I can remember, Tuna Chip. Go ahead.
More times than I'd like to remember. What's going on, Wick? So the Keith Haring. I love that meme, man. That's delicious. It reminded me a lot of, does anybody remember the guy that punched a Monet? He socked a big fat hole in the middle of a Monet and got arrested for it. The painting, he shoves his fist through it. It's one of those things where it's the original exists, and then a new piece of art, a bit of meta art, gets made out of the previous art, where I don't think of it as really desecrating, because guess what? We didn't take the original painting and paint on it with an AI that was like controlling the machine. So I think that it's good. But that's also, I don't care about respecting the dead. So AI and art, simplest way to put it is that we're at a unique stage in the course of AI getting better at doing the thing we want. Art is about agency in action. For a while there, it used to be, throughout human history, you would have to be very skilled in an action in order to have agency in enacting it. Tools made it so that you didn't need as much skill. We've hit the plateau now where the question has been, why is quality not representative of skill? Are we comfortable with that? Are we not comfortable with it? Should we make the AI less able to make art of its own merit and more coming down to the artist? That's, to me, the primary question that the AI art machine learning tool conversation needs to go through. So
we'll get into it as we go. Last but not least, we have Victard. Go ahead. What are your thoughts? AI art.
So yeah, AI art, it's a pretty new tool that it's got rolled out in the past year. So I think there are some definite problems with AI and AI art in general, that it's trained on a finite data set, which essentially it could be described as just mass plagiarism. I think it creates a simulacrum of whatever the original art is, and my concern is that by not doing these faithful reproductions and doing these intentional or unintentional distortions, that the AI is going to just train itself to further distort copies of this simulacrum, and we're just going to lose meaning eventually. So I think that there's a lot of meaning behind art, and I think that this was just a bait post on Twitter that got blown up. Pretty much. I don't think there was too much of like this piss Christ intention behind it. I thought it was pretty funny, but that it was so intentionally bad that if you like really look at it, it really looks like somebody did take a Photoshop like very badly, just the stamp tool, and just kind of rub it over the rest of the painting. So it wasn't particularly like moving good. It was definitely a bait post, and I think that you're just gonna start seeing more and more of this, and I think that there's something special about the practice of art and refining a skill, and I'm afraid that we're gonna lose that as a society as these tools make it easier and easier for the layman to just jump in and start doing stuff like this.
Make it easier for the layman to jump in. Do we think that's a problem, gang? Do we think that the ease of entry to making art is going to result in a loss of skill overall? What are we thinking? Go ahead.
I think I think what we're describing is the democratization of information and skill. That's what we're describing here. And I think, is it true? And I think here's my main problem with what Vic got at. Vic said that, and just stop me if I'm wrong, that the AI keeps creating stuff that's going to distort. The AI will train itself to further distort images like simulacrums, and we're going to lose meaning in art. My problem is I don't know necessarily if art is about the meaning of the artist who made it. I think that's wrong. Like the death of the author, for instance. Once you make something and put it out into the world, I feel like anyone can project whatever meaning they want onto it. No?
that's okay. So that you'll get into a clear linguistic issue here, which is what is the value of art and what is the categorical nature of art? Like what makes art art? So to the artist, the act of making art is fulfilling due to the fact that it's an extension of agency. That's at least the common understanding amongst artists. The reason I paint, the reason I make music, the reason I do XYZ, I'm expressing myself. I'm trying to challenge myself with this set of skills towards affecting the world, taking what's internal and making it external. So that is what art is to the artist most of the time. We don't necessarily like the idea that this thing that is internally rewarding is no longer being rewarded economically, socially. We're not liking the fact that that change is happening. But nonetheless, people are going to keep making art for the reason of testing their own skill and making something that is an expression of agency. The question is, why and is it good that society is now going to privilege machine learning algorithms copying the work of people that are doing something that is internally fulfilling? I personally don't think that economic support needs to exist for art to be sacred, but it does come into this question of like, is it sustainable? Is it good? Is the best art only possible because we give money to it? Kind of like the early cathedrals, which had extreme funding, versus now you compare that to modern architecture, which is working with much slimmer budgets, tends to be seen as ugly. You can take that same analogy onto physical art. What does it mean that all of the money that used to be in art is now getting moved over to tech? You know, that's what we should care about. People are going to keep making art in the agency definition. The question now is like, people in this chat right now probably have made a Bart Simpson or what's the big one that was trending right now? Funko Pop, the Funko Pops. You can make that in like 5 seconds by pressing a button. It's not fulfilling the way that like making a painting is.
Yeah. I would argue that actually most economically rewarded art is not really the meaning, and the intent of the artist is not very important, and the art itself may not even be produced for other people to derive meaning from it. So, for example, an insane amount of art that's produced is concept art for game studios. The final game might be an art project in some capacity. It might have meaning, there might be intent. But these bigger games that hire, tens to hundreds of concept artists that might be replaced by AI, they're asking for the 100th forest scene with a little guy looking at a spaceship that this guy's drawn. And there are whole art stations of real artists where you can find almost AI-like identity between all of the art on there. There are a few places where we care a lot, like museums. There's a little plaque next to the art with history of the art. But I'm not entirely sure we live in a society now where every piece of art has some kind of intent behind it. And it hasn't stopped people from having intent, but I'm not sure that's true.
Let me be more clear on this. There are two ways of using the word art, and they are very importantly different. One of them is whether or not the act of making something feels artistic, and thus it's a product of artistic intent, which would be the meaning conversation. And then there's the other one, which is that we want visual depictions of things, and we need them to exist, and we're willing to pay for them. People tend to think that that shitty picture of a bowl of fruit that you see inside of a Hilton motel is less artistic, but you still have to call it art because that now has become the standard that we refer to all paintings, songs, and everything by the fact of them being produced.
Yeah.
Well, here's a question I have, because I wonder what the response is to this. And I don't mind. Do you mind if I just do like a hypothetical? It's kind of dumb, but let's say, like, I'll take you for instance, Tuniship. Let's say you're like, I don't know, some artist, right? You like to paint stuff. You also have a phone. Phone's in your back pocket. You're walking through the office or whatever, and for whatever you butt dial it, right? You accidentally take a picture of like an air humidifier or something. Let's say that like there's like an alien up in like a saucer, and like they beam up that photo. They're looking at the picture of that air humidifier and they think that's one sexy piece of machinery. And like they're just like enamored by it. They think it's fine art, right? Is the alien right to consider that art, even though you didn't take the photo as a complete accident?
So that there's already an existential question that's presently taken with this idea of found sounds. A lot of people will take they'll take recordings of things and they'll recontextualize an image. The question of like, okay, so yeah, this picture is taken. Who made it art? Well, it just depends on what the definition is. Sometimes the framing of something, the choice to look at something with the reverence and depth of intent, like just like really rest on an image, is what makes it art. Because the depth of it, something that's in nature, like for one, the air conditioner had to exist, the camera had to exist, the person walking around in nature inside of that space had to exist for all these things to happen. That's a lot of labor. That's a lot of human, labor has been put into making the picture possible. And we gloss over all of that effort because we tend to not care. We're inundated with it. But if you look at these, you listen to these field recordings of just nature chirping, and you listen to it with an intent of wanting to see beauty in it, is that making it art? I personally don't think so. I think that that's like looking at things with artistic curiosity. There's so much to parse with that, though. There's like a different layer to it.
Yeah, I kind of want to, like, this does matter to the discussion, like what is art and the definitions and things, but I think I don't want us to get lost here. I don't want us to get stuck here. I'm really curious, who all on here considers themselves an artist? Raise your hand.
Not professionally.
Not
you know
professional.
what?
I got a DeviantArt.
Okay, so
Of course you do. Of course you do.
You
man.
fucking
It's full of
Okay.
AI
Mentioned
art
aliens,
now.
this guy
I don't need to
perked up.
paint anymore.
I don't know.
Throw it
Okay.
up there.
Okay. So I guess, do you find it concerning at all? Because mass plagiarism was mentioned, and plagiarism's come up as well. That the way that AI is generating all its art is simply by basically copying massive amounts of input of other people's work and using that in order to produce their product. Do we think that there is any concern with that at all, with that angle? Again, most of this was done non-consensually. The art was simply out there and people just took it and used it.
I want to push it back against this non-consensual thing. When you upload an image onto the internet, that is a massive act of consent towards it being used by people. You are inviting an image to be massively copied, reiterated, especially when it's inside of the channels that are able to be
For
pulled
money?
up by a
I
search
doubt
engine.
it.
Yeah,
Because that's
definitely
what's
for
happening.
money. So there is significant number of times you can use commercial copyrighted art to make money. You can use it for collage. You can run it through enough filters on Photoshop that it's transformative. You can trace it and paint it in another style. All of these things are explicitly protected legally.
Yeah.
And if we think about the ethical reason to enforce copyright, it is not to stop people from using tools to replace a group of artists, any group of artists, right? So Photoshop substituted for traditional art in a huge way. I mean, there must be a million times the digital art if there is traditional art being sold out on a street fair.
Imagine if every
But
time you took a selfie, Wick, you had to pay somebody who was an airbrush artist to get rid of all those pock scars.
But here's the thing. AI art, what it's able to do is at a different level. The writer's strike was huge. This is a huge point because basically it can now just replace writers in a large sense.
there's two separate issues that aren't related but both talk about substitution. And one is, how is the AI made? It's bad probably to make an AI on explicitly non-consented or hacked materials going into someone's account and getting their art out or re-sharing that, or using child exploitation materials to train your AI. That's obviously bad. But that's a very different problem than someone using the image to image on an AI to copy someone's art and pass it off as their own, or to create a fake child exploitation image.
Yeah. Well,
These are different discussions despite their similarity.
I guess pulling on what Wick said, I think the logic is fuzzy on all of this stuff because in my opinion, the reason why there is such terror on the internet right now is not because they have replaced artists, but because they think that they probably will. So like they can't replace. I'm gonna be honest, dude. I could not watch a Chat GPT written episode of any TV show. It's really, really, really bad. It just makes shit up all the time. It's crazy. Like ask it for an argument, then ask it for sources, and it will generate writers who don't even fucking exist. Like even with artists, like artists on Twitter right now are always posting pictures of AR, like look how shitty this art is, and like pointing out 5 different reasons why it's bad. It's difficult to have. We need to stop all AI art. It's going to completely wipe us off the map and destroy us. And also, AI art is shitty and will always be bad and will always be better. There is, I think, a contradiction there.
Well, okay. One of the main things with art, and I had this conversation before. When you look at AI art with that same perspective, that same that artistic curiosity, where you really look at it and you spend time on it, it falls apart, right? Especially when it has a lot of details. All the stuff in the background, you start counting fingers. Suddenly, the letters on stuff in the background aren't clear. The amount of attention to detail that a person puts into art tends to get lost inside of especially the bits of AI art that are most popular right now, some of your stable diffusions and such. That is less and less of a problem the less that a person rests their eyes on an image. So proofs of concept are really well made by AI. And if we are constantly like looking at images and we're not meant to like sit on them, such as advertising material, AI is doing pretty good. It's like basically 95% of the way there. It's not ready for somebody to look at it the way that they look at a painting like a Van Gogh, but it is ready to be looked at the way that people look at a McDonald's ad.
Here's a
don't give
question.
a shit about the details there.
Here's a question. I'll even probably just take an example some of the technical aspects. You're aware that there are some AI stuff where like it'll generate 5 images, you can pick one, generate 5 like this, pick this one, generate 5 like this, and you can keep basically generations images go down and down and down until you find something.
Yeah, you get inside of the
generator
in the generator, yeah.
Yeah, so here's a question, I guess. Let's say someone sits down for months through generations and generations and tries to run an image that's perfect, pitch perfect. And let's assume that if you spend enough time, you can't do this.
Sure.
Let's take that to be effort. Let's take that to you're slightly editing your prompts each time, you're up and lowering filters, you're trying to change shit. Like
that is
if
learning
it is about,
a tool. That is learning a tool, yeah. I don't disagree with that.
If it's about sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm just curious if it's learning a tool in the same way that like with like the big YouTube plagiarism thing that just came out. Like that takes effort to learn how to plagiarize on that level.
Not really.
It kind of does. I mean,
okay,
not everyone's doing it.
Illuminati was
saying,
just reading the
let's say we
I'm just saying with the people
Or maybe learning how to use a keyboard.
Let Victard finish his point.
If somebody is copy and pasting several different articles, right? And it is somewhat of an original amalgamation of other people's work, right? And that's it's just my fear is the better that AI art gets, the less we're going to be able to actually tell, and the more that you're going to basically the people that put the effort into originally creating all of the artwork are going to get left behind, and you know, whether I'm just like an old man shouting against the tide, you know, I feel like that's going to come no matter what. But, you know, is that a good thing for society?
Vic, I got a question.
Is it put more money into art or artists, or is it going to devalue it?
There's a good distinction to make here, Victor. I wonder if how on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad would it be if AI art replaced all the McDonald's ads, hotel paintings, low-level concept art, you know, initial sketches. Let's just say all the stuff it could sort of replace right now. But we didn't touch the museums or the art fairs of people sharing art or, you know, places where you're meant to really meaningfully look at it, like Tuna Chip said. You know, would that be a disaster? Or do you think that would actually be an okay level of replacement to put the corporate side into a manufacturing queue and worry about the rest?
I think it would be great for the corporation's bottom line. And it would be much cheaper than paying artists to create all that artwork, for sure.
Yeah.
But, you know, does does the person who wanted to become a Van Gogh but then finds themselves, working in that advertising art job, and they have a meaningful life and they're doing the art that they want to do, those jobs go away, and I think that's kind of sad ultimately.
Yeah, I
I
mean, Van
I
Gogh
agree.
died poor and alone. I wonder if that guy in the corporate job would have become a Van Gogh if the corporate job wasn't available.
Well, I mean,
If
Or
you
would
that's an
well,
seen,
that's a
interesting point
question.
too.
I want Tuna to go too, but
Will there
before he
be?
does, before I forget this, like I worry, one of my worries in regards to AI art is that a lot of the reasons that a lot of people want to become artists now is because they can get into concept art for video games. They can there is a path that will put money in their pockets, and they realize that maybe they won't make it big, maybe they won't be the next Rembrandt, but they can make some form of a living. So will this have a chilling effect on people wanting to go into art and be an artist in the first place? Why do that when you could just go and put a prompt in and let it generate it for you? What do you think, Tuna?
we might not be able, just to respond to your thing really quick, we might not see children want to go into painting or go into making rock and roll music or basically the art mediums of our time, but people are still always going to find some way to have more eyes on them, have more respect placed on them. If it means that somebody's really good at, Splatoon 3 or something, I don't
Hey,
really
Brittany. So,
care. I think it'd be
just real
better.
quick, Brittany Simon viewers, welcome to the YouTube. We're discussing AI art right now, and the future of art in general. Stick with us. Should be interesting. Go ahead, Tuna. Sorry.
Yeah, so I don't think that people are going to stop wanting a medium. They're just going to find the medium that is the most fruitful in terms of its returns. Like if right now making images of, and there are some fucking terrible artists out there who deserve to starve on the street. If right now you are being knocked out of economic viability because you are, oh my god, I used to make Peter Griffin hentai and now the AI is coming for it. I'm sorry, man. You were making lowbrow art. You were probably not making anything that's fulfilling to you. I disagree with this assertion that people making all of because most of the artists right now, what is filling their pockets? It is furry porn and corporate art. These people are not fully fulfilled.
Yeah.
They are making shit that is, they are going where the money is, and then maybe in their spare time, because they're honing their skills, making the stuff that isn't fulfilling, they're able to use the skills that they get from that private field in their personal artistic practice. I don't think that that's any better than, say, working as a lawyer, the classic blues lawyer guitarist thing where you're like separating your art practice from your professional. It's not making their lives worse. If you look inside of an animation studio, these people fucking hate their lives, especially the old ones, going frame by frame by frame by frame. It is soul sucking, and it makes it so that you lose passion for drawing. You had something to say, Mr. Bear?
Stingo. Yeah. I mean, like, I think I probably have the bareness. I think we have the bare necessities. I think of that kind of thing. I think one thing that I think is probably super important to the topic. I've been probably mostly pro AI art this entire panel. The one thing that I think is the biggest issue is indeed the idea that of jobs being replaced. The idea of this stuff, like for instance, 2 years ago, nobody had no fucking clue what the fuck was going on with this stuff. ChatGPT wasn't around. Like there was no thought to this. It wasn't in the cultural lexicon. But now, so quickly, you hear ChatGPT, you say it to anyone on the street, they know exactly what it is. And this stuff is advancing so quickly. The thought really is the economy of the world ready for that, for what's going to happen? I mean, obviously you have holdups. I think there have been some cases in the Supreme Court about whether you can copyright AI art or whether it, this kind of stuff, right? But if that reaches, if we have lobbyists, obviously corporate lobbyists, if it hits the point that it probably will hit, the question is everyone prepared for that? Because AI won't just take away the jobs of artists. I mean, like, in 20 years, will we really need teachers? If you can have someone that has access to literally every piece of information, you don't have to worry about someone, I don't know, accidentally bringing up something that's wrong. You have just this impenetrable logic bot that can just supply people with information, has an answer to every question. That's the real worry on this topic. Obviously, people can complain and get mad if they think their image has been put into some kind of database. I mean, humans, we take stuff we do that ourselves. Our brains do that. We take in information. I mean, there are plenty of times where, like, I've written something, gone back and gone, oh, that's similar. I'm going to completely rewrite this from scratch and, like, do, like, a brain reset. Like, the worry is really the jobs, and it should be the primary thing that online communities are focusing on when talking about this. And it feels like we're just kind of sitting here, like, morally A-logging about, like, but what if they draw a My Little Pony that's a bit like me? I mean, the whole thing's just complete pandemonium.
$10 from Lawson Harrison. Sorry your Mossad per diem is late. If AI does replace human creation, is this not just the same complaint as any other innovation? I don't think anyone cares if I feel a yearn to mine coal. It's fair. It's a fair point.
No, yeah. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I actually have a response to Dingo's thing that I think ties those two together. The real concern is not that we're going to be kicked out of these contemplative fields. And I think that's what a lot of people are scared. And a lot of people say, oh, I'm not that worried about the liberal arts. You know, they're making the art and everything. They should have known better than to get a useless degree. The worry is what happens when those people get pushed into the low barrier to entry fields, and then they start pushing everybody else out of those jobs, which are already tight economically. If you have an IQ lower than 110, in 20 years, I don't know if you're going to be able to work at fast food, because those jobs are going to take up the social burden of all of the indebted liberal arts degree, kicked out of the field because of automation, people that are just like, you know what, I need to pay off my credit card bills that I've racked up. I need to pay off my student debts. The only way I'm going to be able to do it is by working 3 full-time jobs at different low barrier to entries, because all of my skills from college. I'm not worried even about whether or not we're ready economically to adjust to there being fewer jobs. I'm worried about what's going to happen when, like, all of these people that have to, like, pay for their health care, or, you know, like, we're going to be paying much higher taxes for all of, like, you know, what are the people called? The Walmart greeter. That's what everybody's job is going to be eventually. You're going to have a job where all you're really meant to do is just stand there and make sure someone's not shoplifting. You're going to get paid like $12 an hour. And that's, you went to college. You're not a dumb person. You're not elderly. You're not literally being paid below the minimum wage for being legally retarded. You are just standing there because that's the only job that they have left. I don't think that we can have an economy sustained on shit like that, personally.
Yeah, if the speed is really high, there's going to have to be compensation of some sort. Like, if you were a gainfully employed artist in the last 5 years, if we destroy all art jobs that aren't trading physical paintings at a street fair, then
Yeah.
to avoid societal problems, there's got to be a subsidy. Like, here's 50K, get retrained, go work at the movies or something.
I mean,
But
you know,
yeah,
But the whole thing is it's not just art either. It's like all of media, really. I mean, and you know, you could make
Data
an argument for,
yeah, if it goes that fast, it's even more important.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
or white collar
Well,
jobs.
just to be
too.
clear, there are data entry jobs, right, that are already gone because of AI.
Yeah, exactly.
And GPT
Yeah.
and things like
I mean,
that.
and
They're just gone.
It's
I
all
hope I
about
don't-
speed, not type.
Yeah.
Right.
I hope I don't do
Any
like
job. Programmers go in 5 years. Got to pay the programmers. That's
hope
going to
I
be
don't-
how it is. Yeah.
I hope I don't do like a poor job at explaining this, but I think another, like, and I think this is probably a term for what we're all thinking of, is the intelligence explosion. The idea that you're gonna have, like, let's say humans create a super intelligent artificial intelligence, right? A super intelligent AI is gonna be better at making a super intelligent AI than, like, a human is. And then that super intelligent AI is gonna be easier at doing that than the one before it, right? So it's the same generations thing that we were talking about earlier. You know, that kind of thing is super possible, where, you know, you have something that's, you know, feels safe and a little cozy, and then within a week it's like completely ramped up to something that's like beast that we've never exactly seen before. Like, that's feasible through, I guess, you know, AI safety and what the kind of the researchers are talking about on that topic, you know.
Fair enough.
This isn't unique to AI. Any kind of apocalyptic tech explosion will cause this. And we had the identical conversation on the AI
We
girlfriend
did.
thing. If
We
it
did.
gets so good and so recognizably human so quickly that everyone is fooled and we fall into the great mega feed, which is a concern with the art too, that general concern is always going to be bad. My main argument on that panel was essentially people were predicting that when romance novels became cheap to print. They said, why would anyone engage with reality when you have this solitary activity, any sexual fantasy you want in your
Mhm.
pocket? Sounds kind of familiar, right?
So it
So,
yeah, it sounds to me like everyone here, except for perhaps Victard, is saying that there's no really intrinsic. There is either no threat to people's desire to be creative through the traditional mediums of sculpting, painting, drawing, sketching, etc. Or that there's really no intrinsic value in those mediums, and it's okay to replace those with just AI in general. Is that
Yeah.
kind of where we're at here?
I don't think
Yeah.
there's intrinsic value to putting them in hotels specifically.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think the most important thing when we're talking about kind of AGI and the way that it's unfolding now is important. It's important, I feel like, to keep in mind when we think. I mean, you see a lot of people who are kind of doomsday posting about it, kind of like it's going to be the end of the world. I think it's important to keep in mind when exactly this is going to happen. It's like, we have data that says that like transformative AI has like a 10% chance of being realized in the next 15 years, 50% within 40 years, and 66.6% chance that we'll see it in the next 80 years. So obviously, Wick, that's not within your lifetime, but for someone like me, we're
I'm
that could roll on.
He's a healthy boy.
It's
Yeah,
true.
he's a healthy guy. Okay, we'll upload you. I'll
Well,
upload you to my
actually, you know
blast.
what? And this is why I don't want to hold back AI, because it's because we talk about these tangential fields. When you ask, if we're going to get to a generalized artificial intelligence, I don't give a shit about art if it means that people are living longer because the doctors are being replaced with machine learning that is able to more consistently operate on people and extend people's lives. It's always in these artistic and
Yeah.
what's the purpose of my life conversations that we can get past the real gains that are being made by this, which is that, like, right now, my girlfriend is going through a hell of a ringer trying to get several different doctors to agree on what exactly the applied application for her condition. Some people disagree on what the condition is. Some people disagree on what the treatment should be. And it's all happening because we are in this big, complicated state where there are many different fields and there's no consensus. There's no single thing wrapping all the fields together. If AI could just take multiple pedagogies and turn them into one fused apparatus, that would be a huge deal. If it could just make it so there's less ambiguity and decision inside of these economic fields, that would be a huge deal. We can like look at this and see, I don't know, like here, we can look at like a fucking, Joseph Stalin Funko Pop picture and be like, oh my God, the art's gotten so good at replacing toys. I don't care, man. I don't care about that. I'm not going to slow it down because people are
100%.
scared that they're going to lose art jobs. I want my grandma to get 5 more years on this earth. I want, if I have a child,
yeah.
it to not die at 35 from a weird cancer.
And this is stemming off from that. First off, like you'll be fine. I'll upload you to my BlackBerry and all that. But I think like something that I think you're right. But I think the most important thing that we have to understand is like when this stuff is gonna come, right? It's not gonna be. I feel like it won't be within the hands of people who I expect to like do a good job at it. So like, here's an example, right? Like, let's like say that like I'll use Wick as I use Twinship as an example for it. Let's say Wick, you're like the CEO of like a paperclip company. And you're like, there's been a shortage of paper clips recently. We need to make more paper clips. And then like you say to the AI, all right, maximize the production of paper clips. Like realistically, a simple command like that, what's the first thing it's going to think of? Well, child labor is awfully cheap this time of year. And you know what? Climate change is sort of an issue no one cares about. Why don't we just do away with that? If it's within the hands of people like corporations and they really don't have any responsibility necessarily to humanity, they have responsibility to their shareholders. And if they're the ones in charge of AI and they're saying, yeah, but those artists, they're kind of losers, or like, oh, but you know, we have to make this, so sorry, Chinese, we're gonna put you guys back in the factories, right? If that's what they're gonna be doing, then I guess the conversation also needs to be who's actually gonna be in control of AI? Who ought to be in control of it? Can we trust the governments? If we can't, who can we trust? Because we certainly can't trust corporations.
Well, it doesn't
Government's
look
gonna
like
have
we
to be in
can
control.
trust the individuals either, given from the AI's use in
For
propaganda
sure.
on Twitter and other things that have been boosted to the moon for various reasons, right? And that's another kind of angle I want to tackle this from. When it comes to using the AI to produce art that is deep fakes, for example, right? A form of art where you, again, nudity or pornography is used. Like we
I've
make
got a couple here. I'll
pornography
pull
of
'em
tuna
up.
chip or something right now. That, again, as we progress, it's going to be harder and harder and harder and harder to tell. And even now, there are people who fall for the videos of Arma 3, a video game, and
Oh, yeah.
thinking that that's real life combat and war. If we
100%.
get we're not too far away from that being used to just show whatever government you happen to hate doing a war crime and doing it in a
Yeah.
very convincing way and posting
Exactly.
it everywhere. Like,
And let's even downscale that to like human. Let's say I get like I don't know, like a picture of like 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙, right, and like put it on the face of like some random person who's like some stock footage, someone beating their wife, and I send it off to the cops and the police. Are we gonna have a whole department in the police who are now like going to evaluate whether something's AI or not? We already have AI detectors. They're not very good, you know. And I think that gets the problem of. I think I was gonna talk on this earlier, but obviously, if it's not, who's gonna?
to just interrupt you right quick, on the AI art detector issue, a lot of people, to get around the AI art detector issue or to imply that something is AI, they will take something that's real and they will make AI art of it, upload it to these AI art detectors, and so then we get a lot of false positives, right? We get a lot of things. So this is we don't have the tools right now to deal with this. But
So there's a transition that happens when we're going to do a historical analog here. When we first figured out how to take images, when we really started making it so that whatever was seen by a lens was able to be recorded inside of a picture, a photograph, we were able to like open up this new era of public access to truth about the past through empirical proof that didn't exist before, and we've founded our entire civilization on the idea that you can use empirical evidence in order to believe somebody, that it lends credence and authority. I've got this video camera, I recorded it. That's the guy that stole the Kit Kats from my gas station, and that's why I shot him in the head. You're not gonna be able to do that anymore because, at least not as a common person, the courts should have a digital forensic right in the same way that we have right to a lawyer. You should have right to have your content scanned. And how good the technology is at like tracing whether, you know, if it's going to be the metadata, if it has to come down to like the quality of the pixels. Theoretically, the only way that it's going to be good enough is if the government nationalizes or at least makes it necessary that all progress made and all defrauding technology made by these private corporations basically belongs to the government. Because if they don't, then suddenly the courts can't confirm something that a private corporation can. We are looking at like the debasement of the entire legal the entire legal community. We're making it so that like a judge has to call somebody who works for a private company who, for all intents and purposes, could not be giving the full truth about what can be proven as a deep fake or not. These are the people that are going to decide whether or not, you know, you get arrested. That entire risk is why I think that governments are going to have to. They're going to have to intervene,
Exactly.
that's a Donald Trump's whole fucking thing that he started and Biden has continued, where there is now a part of the federal government in the United States which is researching AI. It's probably going to grow to the point where Nvidia and the United States are hand in hand, and Israel's in the background jerking off. You know, it's like it's not going to be
Yeah.
separable.
And I
I
think
think
if you
there was. Oh, go on.
I think if you take an opposing side for that, I think you're in for like a grisly surprise. I mean, I'll even draw on like an example that we already have, right? If anyone remembers, or if this is probably fresh in everyone's mind, the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Remember the argument from the defense that zooming into the footage created new pixels and it was AI. And of course they weren't able to get, I believe they weren't able to get like an expert on that, right? But it's even become just a useful tool just to discredit people in general. I mean, we recent the Israel-Palestine stuff. Thank you. That was the check. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Keep going.
I think that draws on something important, which is that not only is AI really, really, really good at like spreading things that are fake and false, it's also really good at making people think things that are true are false as well. So what we have to deal is, and I think this is something I'm going to pull on specifically, a post-truth world. We're going to have to deal with that. And America, I'm European, I don't live in your guys' country, but from the outside looking in, as fractured as it is right now, I can't imagine what you guys are going to do, specifically with AI in the next 10 years, considering the way politics in your guys' country has become so utterly fractured.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, people used to have reporters they trusted, and they would get a newsletter from that reporter mailed to them, or a paper whose reporters that, the New York Times used to mean something. And as the breaking news combines with social media and AI, we're getting more noise than signal in a lot of areas. And so the good news is none of the ways we knew things before have gone away. There was a brief period where video couldn't be faked, but it could be edited in almost, as a confusing a way. But I mean, pre 1950, people did get world news. And I think we're headed more towards that, except for in the cyber space, there's now noise instead of silence. So, I mean, just based on where I work in tech, I can tell you social media companies do not sell you truth. They don't claim to, certainly not in their terms of service. They sell you entertainment. And we've said that sort of, offhandedly. Oh, yeah, Facebook's not really for news. We're going to find out in the next 50 years that your social media feed is not news. And there's going to be two sets of people. There's going to be the sets of people who go confirm things with multiple sources right now, and they figure out this source doesn't agree with this one, and it's not very reliable news. And then there's going to be people who get lost. And I think that's what we're starting to see.
I'm going to ask you,
Well,
what
we got a
percentage of
couple
people do you think
wanna
are
go.
going to be
Ask real quick, but then Victor has to go. Go ahead.
we're talking about a damaged public trust here, though. Like, most people don't trust the mainstream news because they don't see the difference between the social media news conglomerate and the official news conglomerate. And then you can say, well, the government holds one of these more accountable than the other. And then they're like, well, they don't trust the government either. We're talking about totally fractured. And this is not just like your boomer dad that watches Trump. Like, if you look at,
of course, the
Gen
young people
Z
are getting
and Gen
fooled
Alpha
a lot.
have
Yeah.
no faith in any
Exactly.
authoritative structure.
Yeah.
It's going to be the majority. It's going to be the vast majority.
I think it's going to be about 40%, because if you look at the days before social media and these really broad feed-based things, you had about 20 to 30% of the US were real hardcore young Earth creationists who believed that the Earth is 6,000 years old. About 10% were deep anti-vaxxers, even before the current political situation. And another 5% probably had totally insane beliefs that were less mainstream. So I bet on social media, we're going to see similar numbers, just because I'm kind of a media, I have a passive view of it. I think most media reacts with humans pretty similarly. So I bet it's going to be a similar outcome.
And I think that's the big problem with media right now is, and I think there's two side points to that are super interesting. Number one, the reason why this is all happening is because people distrust their government because they don't feel heard by their government. Like, look what's going on right here in Ireland. The hate speech laws. Everyone here hates it and doesn't want it to happen, but it's still going through. It's still trying to be passed. Even the Americans are ribbing us now, saying it's fucking crazy, and it is. And another thing is that like we, or I think not only the Americans, the world, I feel, traded in something that was sometimes wrong for something that lies and schizobabbles all the time. I don't know how you could get your news from Steven Crowder as opposed to CNN. The difference is when CNN gets something wrong, you actually know.
No,
That's the
usually.
key difference.
Sometimes. I get it. I do want to pass the ball to Victor. He was trying to get in, so I want to give him some space.
I was just gonna say that because earlier we were talking about like this time where we might have like a device that will give us all of the correct knowledge on something, and I think my fear is in the opposite direction, where I think I'm more worried where we're going to get a device that we cannot tell what the truth even is anymore, and I worry that there's the old millennial saying, I'm glad I was born because I got to see the internet, the time before the internet, and now we're living in the time like of the internet and all this, and I've witnessed the transition. And I worry about the younger generations that didn't necessarily witness the transition. They don't trust these institutional sources. So then what do you trust? Like random user on YouTube that makes the videos you like? And then we're gonna get farther away from truth, is my fear.
And
basically.
we do know that these things are influencing the nation, right? We can see that. We can see governments pushing. The CCP is pushing propaganda on TikTok right now, right? Like right now, they're just really boosting things that are pro their regime, and they're limiting things that are anti their regime. When it comes to art as well, to kind of bring it back just a smidge, to art itself, right? Is there worry that it will just kind of calcify and make people less willing to diversify their art? What I mean by that, right? Perhaps the wrong term. They won't take as many risks because you will get immediately rewarded for certain types of art, right? By doing art by the book, so to speak, by doing art that is in the bounds. You'll get all the likes, you'll get all the retweets, you'll get all the updates and the social media thing. Do we think that that's a concern at all? Why or why not? Tuna, you're trying to get in here? Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that that's gonna be an issue. The main reason being that okay, if AI is really good at creating a proof of concept, and it's creating a proof of concept by taking a prompt or taking like a rough idea and then integrating it into the already existent skeleton, then what you're doing is you're making art that's pretty good in terms of its ability to be synthesized into the mimetic framework that already exists, but you're not making art that is transgressive, and you're not making art that is like epoch defining. It's not going to change. So the big hitters, the revolutionary art that comes out, and people will disagree about how often it happens. That's the whole conservative cry that happens lately. But that stuff won't really get affected because that is bearing witness to inspiration in your head, testing around with a couple of tools, and then realizing you can do something by exploiting your tools in a way that hasn't been done before. The bleeding edge of art is not being affected. It's all the hilts. All of this stuff we're willing to let go of. I think inside of the art community, we're willing to let go of the fruit paintings and the McDonald's ads and have only the Junji Itos and the big players. Do those people start making art because they want to create commercial art? No. They suddenly start making art because they find it interesting and they are touched by vision. I don't think the art community is going to lose anybody important. I'm just worried what's going to happen to the art schools and art education and the art industries that are downstream from it. That's my concern. But art itself is going to sustain. We are not going to lose great men from this. You had something, Blue?
I would point out the biggest driver of variety is ease. So you just look at the food we eat, right? There's these degrowthers on Twitter who talk about how we won't have bananas under a degrowth economy or whatever. And that's because, back in the day when we had sailing ships, eating a banana was basically impossible. And I think the same can be said with AI art. There's probably going to be the mega feed or whatever of the all Wallop style elf in snow paintings or whatever's behind me. But then there's going to be people who'd use AI art in truly insane, detailed ways that you couldn't do with a paintbrush, even with all the time in the world and skill. There are going to be configurations of pixels that are now available, and some of those will lend it themselves to variety, or unless we've reached the maximum of variety with human skill, which seems like a tall claim.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Go ahead.
Can I check with you, Art or Blue? What's your current artistic medium?
I just do digital painting for fun, or I'll do like photo bashing. I'll like take textures from copyrighted images and collage them together like a concept artist or an AI.
And you said that you are a professional artist. I remember earlier when we asked.
No, I work in social media actually.
Not professionally.
No, I have a DeviantArt for fun.
Okay.
No.
Everybody here has a DeviantArt besides me, apparently. I was going to ask
a DeviantArt.
I don't have a DeviantArt.
You don't?
I
okay.
also
You know
don't
what?
have a DeviantArt. In fact, only one person has a DeviantArt on here. That's
have you
fine.
noticed that there's a facial hair equals not? You either have facial hair or DeviantArt. What's going on with that one?
Hold on.
Yeah,
wait.
That's why I'm uncommitted.
Listen, okay, Tuna Chip. Let's not Generation Z. Let's put down our weapons, please. Thank you.
It's okay. I just find it very interesting. I want to see what your search history is. If you had to choose a world, this is for everybody. If you had to choose a world where art is a purely private thing, and then we look at all this public aesthetic stuff, we no longer call it art. We just understand it as being purely advertising. I think we would all say that that's disgusting and sad, right? We feel sad that the entire public has been taken over by the private, right? Does anybody disagree?
The good news is, however disgusted we are by it, is going to determine what our world looks like, right? So maybe every hotel has AI art, but if people are disgusted by AI hotels and demand AI labels next to those paintings and won't go to hotels with AI art, then
that assumes that they're
the choice we can make.
Enough, right?
Right. If they're not that disgusted, then the cost savings will win.
Right? This will matter more to every individual consumer. Which is why the government usually has to step in. Canada's government funds a lot of artists, and I think that's a pretty good idea to do.
I just want to stress this point, if I may.
No AI art.
If I may, I want to stress this point, and it's been brought up by a couple. Dingo brought this up when it came to other things, tangentially. But we like to think that, if enough people don't like something, we'll just change it because there'll be enough hue and cry, right? That's not how things work. Like if you have 100 people
willing to pay for it, that's the difference.
Not just that, because if you have 100 people for it, if you have 100 people and 90 of them, they like spaghetti they're spaghetti fans, okay? They like it. They'll go and they'll pay for it and they'll eat it and it's great to them. And then you have 10 people who fucking hate spaghetti and they are willing to like blow up something to get people to stop producing spaghetti, right? Those 10 people are going to win, right? Those 10 people are going to win. Okay? That's how that works. So we like to think that if just enough people are disgusted by the AI art, then we'll stop making the AI art and we'll transition and people will stop producing it. That's not exactly how this is going to work, especially because of the tool itself that we use to generate AI art. A very, very small number of people can put out a massive amount of product, so to speak. And so I don't know if that's convincing to me that simply having, if just enough people dislike this, then it won't happen. I don't find that convincing.
There's there's two tools the haters use, right? Regulation, like the housing market, and then a lack of interest in pay, right? So maybe there's a type of spaghetti no one's committed enough to demand from a restaurant and pay for, and that we missed out on that spaghetti even though it's great. But presumably all the types of spaghetti a mass of people want to pay for are available, regardless of the haters, because people pay for their food, right?
Okay. I've never seen these big spending things go in the direction of the common opinion. And that's why I just don't. So, like, the stuff that matters more, so like a city decoration, I do see hotels get changed a little bit aesthetically based on trends. Restaurants, like, those get rebrands. But like a city, most of the time, the biggest thing that we talk about is architecture. About 70% of people agree that modern architecture in the United States, 70% of Americans, when asked, see the modern courthouse, see the modern library look, this like stone edifice, as disgusting. And they say that they go to these places less
Yeah,
because of the way that they look, because of the way that it makes them feel when they're inside of them.
that's true.
I've been in libraries where as soon as I step in, I'm like, I need to put headphones on and not interact with anybody.
Exactly.
It's the antithesis of the point. So, that's not going to change. Everywhere in America keeps becoming more and more modern. So we know that this is being mostly led by money, and it's being led by, like, we need architecture that is made out of available materials, will last as long as possible, and allows us to stimulate the economy by, like, creating a new safe area in town. So we make a library in the center, we
Yeah.
decorate it all. That's not seemingly good enough because it makes everybody sad. People are demonstrably upset with the thing. What do you do about that? Why does it change? Like, is it because it's a big spend that happens from a government decision? Does it need to be a public vote? Would people even
Yeah.
be happy with a public vote?
I agree. I mean, there's a level of just like, you actually believe that? Like, aggression when it comes to the topic that sometimes I think is unearned. And I think you touched on an interesting point there. You touched on gentrification, right? Kind of this idea that people feel like their surroundings are being replaced by something unfamiliar. And I think the same worry that we focus on there, it's the same worry that people have when it comes to AI art. The idea is this is very new and unfamiliar, and as a result, it causes me to be scared. So, obviously humans fear the unknown. There's some aspect of it there too, with the way people that react to the like kind of onslaught of AI art, as it were.
Yeah, I
Well,
think these things sit exactly where I said, at the intersection of people won't really pay more for their library, and government designing something. And I'm not an anarcho-capitalist or anything, but I do think if there were if people were really committed to libraries, people might say we really value the city art and the library and all this. There is very little private sculpture around cities. There are very few private libraries around. Most people get their books from Amazon or on their Kindle. I think there are significant active tests, like, are you going to pay 100 more in taxes per year for your library, that people directly say no to with their votes and with their actions, that
But there
imply to me
it's not happening in a vacuum, though. This happens in it's a cycle, it's a
yes,
spiral.
people's
So
preferences are conditioned.
the
Yeah.
less that we get given by our government, the less we're willing to give them, and then in turn and in turn and in turn and in turn. So, how do we reverse the spiral? Because I genuinely think that if public space was more beautiful, we would engage with it more and be more. We would then feel like our money is actually giving us returns, because when we pay more, we would actually get more because we would engage with where that money's coming from. Most people only engage with the public spending when they're driving on their way to work, or when they, God forbid, get sentenced to court once. They don't go inside of the courthouse on a regular basis. They don't go inside of, I mean,
Yeah,
children
I mean,
go to public schools. That's the main one.
we could separate these two things. This is one solution.
we're
So
getting
one is
a little off topic,
we
just FYI.
oh yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm sorry. Well, the point to me is art. we
Yeah.
have given up art. We've given it up. We've said, you know what? Art is just a thing people do in private. All of this advertising, all these images, sculpture, it's all dead. I'm trying to, like, root back to what Wick's thing is. Are we okay with sculptures going away? Are we okay with architecture going away because we just don't have enough money
Yeah.
being put towards art for it?
And there's another side of that. That's not only paintings. It's like even like sima dum luma human work at 30 between innovative and representative, like that kind of stuff, right? Music is another like kind of aspect that's interesting to that. Where like a lot of people when they're listening to music, they don't necessarily analyze the lyrics or the melody. Some of it just, this sounds nice. There's a level of that to it as well. Like, what percentage of people who are listening to music are deeply analyzing the lyrics or actually even paying attention? And then obviously if AI music comes up on the rise, what are the odds that people are going to start inspecting that more closely than they would, I don't know, a Rolling Stones song?
I think a lot of people care.
That's
I mean, if you go to a museum, a big
Yeah.
emphasis is the skill in the art.
Yeah.
And when you listen to music, there are a lot of
Is
artists
that-
that are really popular because they are the best at some guitar
or is
thing.
it
No, at a
notoriety,
museum.
right? So like you
It
say
could,
that
well, right.
where
I
they're
mean, people can
emphasizing
trick
the
you.
skill, but a lot of especially in museums, it's about the notoriety of the thing, the
then-
historicity.
Yeah,
if
there's
you
a lot
will.
of very
All-
person-specific attributes to the art, like
Yes.
notoriety,
Okay.
I was
skill,
gonna,
fame, history, life,
Go
that matter a
go
lot
ahead,
to viewers.
Victor.
yeah, no, I was gonna say it's very interesting with like the music thing, because if you look at like the corporate use of it, where you have like Muzak in like malls, where it's just a cheap amalgamation of something that feels familiar and comfortable that can just play in the background. That's not looked at as like a good thing. Like the Muzak wasn't, like an innovative, great accomplishment, and I think that we're kind of Musaking art a little bit.
Well, and the question is, how much more would you pay at a mall food court to have a real intentioned, skilled artist playing the music versus the food court music, right? If it cost $2 more for a burger, would it be worth it? Restaurants with atmosphere seem to imply that, right? High level restaurants often have specialty art pieces in them and an experience that goes beyond the sort of physical dressing of the restaurant. But you go into McDonald's, do you really care if the music's AI generated or not?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's a question of function, right? I'm just saying like these things exist and they're going to continue to exist, and that's the way that this is going to be ultimately, I think, used most likely.
Yeah, I think it's assembly line art is going to turn into AI.
The
art.
Muzak is a good analogy here, because if you guys haven't sat on Muzak a lot of times the way that you make it is you take a famous song and you just change a couple of notes to make it more dull.
Yeah.
It really does almost, but it's being made by people. I mean, Muzak is going to start getting made by AI, and that's going to create some lawsuits. But all of the corporate proceedings that have gone to Muzak have gotten down to the point of saying, like, we can't, with the language that the legal has right now, we can't, with that language and with that logic, actually stop people from making this art. Everybody thinks it's disgusting. Every time I call, every time I get put on call hold, I'm forced to listen to something that is like nails on chalkboard, close to "And I Will Always Love You," but it's like 2-4 notes off here and there, and I'm mad about it. Would I be willing to pay 50 cents if halfway through they were like, "Hey, by the way, the song that this is referential to, would you be willing to pay 50 cents in order to hear it?" No, I'm willing to hit the mute button. We just want to leave when we see bad art. We don't want to pay more. We just want to get the fuck out of there. We'd rather see a big blank white wall. That's the human impulse. It's not to pay more. But if there was beautiful music playing all at once and I got offered 50 cents to make it go to a shitty version of the same, I wouldn't take 50 cents for it. Our psychology wants to hold on to things we already have. This is why I think you need to put initiative. You need to make the public space beautiful to begin with, because you don't understand what you have until it's actually there.
And that's kind of what I'm my concern is. And I know I understand, like, oh, it's fear-mongering, but I worry, and I think it's a valid concern, that we are going to lose the soul of what it means to be art, because the next big thing is going to be AI generated art. People are going to play with it. There's going to be iterations of it. They're going to mess with it. And I think that it's going to be a net loss of what we had before. Now, I could very well be wrong, because this is a very new phenomenon. This is uncharted. We are on the uncharted portion of the map. And much like the old-timey maps, here be dragons, right? We don't know what will happen. We have to kind of suppose. We do have another guest who wants to join us. I'll bring him in real quick. They claim to have some very unique perspectives on this. If they don't, I'll kick them out. But we'll bring them in. and we'll see what they have to say.
And I might, mind if I quickly say something in the meantime?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think something interesting that the conversation could also go to is there's something about how, AI obviously doesn't have a gender, it doesn't have a race, and so oftentimes the data sets pulling out of, they have quite a lot of stereotypes and they don't have a human understanding of, personal experience to write things and understand people. So therefore AI is like inherently racist and no one should use it unless they're a bigot. I mean, that's like another side of the conversation you could definitely hit
I'm
into.
going to use it more now.
Yeah, I don't know if
Yeah.
that's exactly true. But okay, Piggy your time to shine, buddy. What do you got?
Hey, hey, it's me, 𝕵𝖎𝖎. I'm trying to turn on my mic right now, my camera.
We
Yeah,
can
I
hear
think
you and
one
see you.
thing that we have been avoiding is like this intellectual property rights conversation. I haven't heard anyone talk upon that.
I'll talk
And
about it. What do you have a specific, more
Yeah,
pointed
what's the
question with it?
specific question? There's like 10.
yeah, so I feel like there is this kind of bias whenever it comes to like making money, right? Because I consider myself to be a scientist and an inventor. And when it comes to certain things like inventions, we just don't have intellectual property rights over that. If there's like some kind of mechanical advantage that and usage to the art, then it's considered in another whole domain. There's the whole other realm of domain where it falls into a different categorization of like law. So if I have, let's say, for example, an infinite energy machine that can generate food, water, and electricity for the community, and I drew that out, that would not be considered to be my own intellectual property, right? Because uh, there's mechanical usage that
I'm
comes out of
sorry,
that.
man. You're losing me. I just want, can you, in one sentence, what do you wanna know about the relationship between AI art and intellectual property?
I'm saying that no one cares about what is intellectual property rights until it affects their pockets, because inventors, uh, what else is another
Are you
word for
asking
inventor?
whether or
Like,
not we think that intellectual property rights is right to sell? So the reason people care when it hits their pockets is because it is a financial concept. If I draw Mickey Mouse getting a big fucking blowjob right now, I can sell it because of the recent changes. But a couple of weeks ago, I couldn't, but I was still allowed to draw it. And I did every
So,
day.
yeah,
I know you
if you
did.
drew an
too.
invention,
Well,
you wouldn't have intellectual property rights for
Let me
that.
try this. Let me try this because there is something here, and I think it does bear discussing. Dingo, every
Yeah.
time you put out art, every time you put out any kind of media, things like that, I took your art directly. I ran it through an AI to change it just enough so it doesn't trigger the copyright, so it doesn't violate the laws. And you find out about this. You find out that every single time you put something out, I'm coming right behind you, and in 5 minutes to an hour, I have an almost exact copy, but it's changed just enough through the AI filter and things like that. So it doesn't trigger any of these things, and it's not illegal,
Well,
right?
yeah.
And I'm making money off of this. I'm making tons of money off of this.
Yeah.
This is
So
a real possibility with AI.
that's true.
Right?
Like the first thing I do, obviously, I'd think about sending 𝕵𝖎𝖎 up in like his kick-ass costume to your house. Would be like the first kind of strategy I'd focus on. But another thing that's kind of more interesting to draw on that is the question is obviously if it is changed enough to not violate my copyright, and you have to obviously get into the weeds of what those laws are. But if you're in a court and you're arguing and it's that similar to the point where I'm upset about it, I feel like I'm not sure if fair use would apply there, because it's necessitated by your thing that it becomes transformative, therefore it is not the same. That's my thought, right? If it is transformative, then it's not the same.
The laws in the United States right now are basically whether or not an ignorant bystander would be able to tell the difference. That's a pretty common defense. So like if I'm walking past and you show me a picture and I'm like, oh yeah, that's definitely the Burger King, then it becomes a little bit more reasonable to say that the Burger King as a depiction has been like copied. But if it's just like I drew a king with no burger-esque, no weird glossy filter on it, then I can get away with that. The line on that has always been, as you can tell though, it's coming from like the consumer. It's about who's paying money, who's seeing the ad. It's all financial sector. That's where the laws matter. If you're mad that I'm drawing,
this isn't so much a law question. Just to be clear, I'm talking about a morality question, right? You are putting in all this effort. You're spending hours of your life to create a product, and while you do this product, okay, what are you doing, Dingo? Come on.
He's trying to make it so that your ADHD.
Just making sure that we're focused on the conversation.
Yes, of course. So, but while he's doing that, in a fraction of the time, I use his work directly. I'm using it, right? And because he's made it public, and I'm making something that the bystander tells the difference, right? It doesn't trigger any legal laws. In fact, maybe it is transformative. But my effort that I've used the effort I've used to produce this thing is a fraction of what he put in. And it's, again, the only reason I'm able to do this is because of the effort he's putting in. I'm taking his work, I'm exploiting it for money, I'm giving him no credit, but it's legal and it's lucrative. And I think that, while as we keep going, as we keep iterating with this AI, as it becomes more and more powerful and is more and more able to take things and to iterate upon them, that's a real fear I have, especially for artists that do transformative work.
Okay, I want to answer that.
Well, so I think there's a big distinction to make with AI, which is copyright law, by law and just ethically, is designed to prevent a specific person from copying a substitute for a specific piece of art and then overshadowing that specific piece of art, right? It is not about an AI exploiting a bunch of art or someone using a bunch of reference or whatever, or making a collage that is more popular than your art piece. It is only based on confusion with a specific art piece. And I think that's where AI is safer, at least in the United States and the UK. And there are countries you could find where it's illegal. But I think the spirit of copyright law is specific pieces. So if you have like a specific invention, right, Piggy, that specific invention is yours. It is protected by copyright and trademark. And you would only be protected if someone created a similar invention, a similar art piece, a similar mechanism that overshadowed yours and was indistinguishable by some standard.
You wouldn't even be protected. Number one thing is that they would have to pay you. Like, they would have to pay you for
damages,
access to
licensing.
that technology. Like, that's
Do
why.
you have any like understanding of the law when it comes to copyright and inventions, or are you just like pulling stuff out of your ass?
I mean, this is from court cases, right? So in the U.S. ruling in October 2023, there was a group of AI artists, about 7 artists, who claimed that AI was a collage making machine, and the judge rejected their claim based on 2 primary categories. One is they could not prove that their art specifically, their specific piece, was used in the training of this AI. They couldn't find it in the data set. They just said generically that it violates copyright. And the second problem they had was they couldn't get the AI to produce pieces that were similar enough to their art to be considered infringing. So they attacked copyright on 2 fronts. Is it used and is it similar? And the judge has allowed the case to go forward, but said that their argument had holes and would be rejected at the current state based on the generic claims they made.
But the thing still here is you're focusing on just art.
That's an art case. There's lots of cases for different things.
Well,
this is the AI art discussion.
I know, but functional art and like AI art, that's what I'm saying. I feel like there is like, I don't know if y'all agree with me here or not, but throughout history, there has been this tendency for technology to be used to like oppress people, and technology itself like isn't made by one race, and that's kind of like the narrative that gets pushed nowadays. They're like, well, if we didn't have this certain civilization colonized the world, then we wouldn't have all these advancements in technologies. And it's like, no, literally, there was people throughout the world who were making certain sciences and technologies, and the history is written by the conquerors. They get the fucking things they
100%.
want to utilize and in control,
So
and
is
they
your
get
claim,
credit for all
Piggy?
this shit.
Piggy, is your
Wait, I'm
claim?
lost. That's
Hold on,
red
just
here.
real quick.
My
Let me
claim
interrogate
is
this.
that
Is your claim that the AI art as a technology is oppressive?
yeah, I think it's a part of this whole oppressive historical thing that happens where there is this like colonization or like this gathering of resources and like ideas, and they're just like, yeah, this is all mine. Oh, y'all came up with all this was like historically uh belongs to y'all. Well, we're just gonna take credit for it,
How do you
and
feel
Yeah.
about how do you feel about
legally it's ours.
capitalism at
Legally it's
all?
ours. So historically, what
I mean, like,
that
Are you just are here's the thing. How much of this is AI art and how much is this is the law, and how do you just feel about capitalism and intellectual property, period?
I don't know where we're going with this.
No, I'm
Where are we
asking you
going with
because if
this?
we're going to have a conversation about the legitimacy of copyrighting one thing or another, we need to know whether or not you even believe in copyright to begin with. Do you believe in intellectual property?
Yeah, I think we should have intellectual property rights, and I think the most
Mhm.
important things that should be protected aren't, which is like inventions. If you want to, like I said, if I wanted to draw a
Your
fucking
invention
picture
is
of a naked, wait,
definitely
let me say this.
protected by
Let me
law
say this.
in some
What are you talking
capacity.
about? How? Okay, look, I'm gonna share this idea real quick because I don't know how many people have inventions here.
Oh,
I'm an
careful.
artist.
I don't know the
I
specific laws.
I literally
I
made the internet.
okay, well,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
do make digital art. I
How?
do poetry, and I do make inventions.
yeah.
So I don't know how
I
So
many
made
your
the
people
thing you
here.
used to make digital art.
yeah, your poetry is copyrighted and protected. Someone copies your poem and sells
Uh,
it, then you are protected. You can sue for
I
damages.
agree. I agree with you about poetry and art, but what I'm saying, inventions, that's not protected. You need to get a patent for that. Do you
Yes, that's
disagree
a
with me?
different
But
that's a
then a
different set
patent
I
of law,
does
but
agree.
a
protect
That's
it.
patent is
Okay.
for
and that
inventions.
Piggy, thank you for calling
okay.
in.
Yeah, sorry,
Appreciate
we're
you
not
being
getting
here. No,
anywhere
it's
with
fine.
this.
Goodbye, Biggie
I
Man.
tried. I tried. Okay.
Yeah,
Cheers.
Okay.
that was really interesting, guys. So
Oh God.
l- let's draw off that quickly.
That is
What I
a
really
cool
wanted to
helmet.
talk. I missed the chance. I called it the kick-ass outfit. I loved it.
Yeah.
I was really missing the opportunity to ask him. Obviously, I was having a chat about tuna ship to this a few months ago. You have animals that can they can speak, they can tell jokes, they can be sarcastic, they can do all this stuff. There was a recent case. I don't know if you remember this of this photographer takes a picture of this monkey. It was up in the air whether the copyright of the photo belonged to the artist who took it, or actually whether or not the image belonged to the monkey. And that was, I
Oh,
think,
or the selfie where the
yeah, the
monkey hit the
selfie.
Yeah.
phone. It was a monkey
Yeah.
selfie. Yeah, that was interesting.
And what I was waiting to ask, I guess, is how do we take that and apply that to an AI? Let's assume that we do create an AI that just goes off and does whatever, just does random stuff. Let's assume that an AI does actually just create something entirely random by itself, zeros and ones. It's not drawing on any particular data set, or if it is, it's all public domain schizobabble stuff that someone threw together in 3 seconds. Who owns that image? Does the AI own the image? In which case, that's a whole other ordeal. Does the person whose PC it's running on own it? And I guess
All art is interpersonal. It is produced by one person say something, someone reflecting a reaction, other people making the same thing. That discursive environment. So that sort of pool, that collective pool that culture draws from to begin with. I think that AI tends to pull from a approximation of that pool, more or less. Sometimes it takes a certain subsegment. Um, the question then is do you really think that the prompt maker has it's going to have to come down to the prompt maker versus the company that created the tool and whether or not that tool was trained using the comments and all that. I don't care. I think actually I would be a lot closer to saying that it just can't be copywritten as opposed because we are in an ambiguous position of mutuality. If it was a contract, let's say like a Adobe or something, you know, they have certain tools inside of Photoshop. They're going to say that you are licensing these tools. So by using these tools, you have full right to them. If a similar thing was signed onto for DALL-E 3 or something, or any AI thing, you would have to have a contract written like that gets rid of that ambiguity, and then suddenly you have permission. Before that contract exists, probably nobody can copyright it. Probably nobody, because it's drawing from so many different positions.
Yeah, Tuna Chip is totally right. It's dependent on the licensing agreement legally. And then ethically, I think it should also be based on agreements. So if someone creates an AI and has it run out into the world and take pictures randomly and modify them or whatever, if that
Yeah,
person licenses it to themselves,
but
then it
this is
belongs to them. And if they license it to the robot, they can have that contract, but it might be
but
meaningless in the US legal system.
we're getting to a place where more and more people are using AI to AI generators like DALL-E and things like that to generate things, prompts, everything for their products. Streamers do that for thumbnails and things like that, and even for ideas for arguments and things like that. I've seen people do that. Um, no one reads these EULAs, right? You know the old South Park episode
It's a
where,
huge problem
yeah,
that they're unreadable. Yeah.
yeah.
Can you say that again? Can you say that again?
No one reads
I
the end user license
EULAs.
agreements.
Oh, yes, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one does, right? There's the old South Park, right? iPhone, with Kyle and all that.
Yeah.
But so when it comes, like, it simply coming down to agreements, right? Like, as more and more people are using these, and as we have more and more AI companies come out with easier to use, more user friendly tools, I it's almost an inevitability to me that there's going to come a conflict between the people who are using these and then the company themselves. And again, the company will say, well, look, you've been using my tool to generate most of what you do as a content creator, so we're going to start to take your money for this or take you to court for this because you've used our tools. It's here in the end user license agreement that we get we keep a portion of the copyright or whatever legal term is appropriate to use here. So yeah, all that money you've been earning, it's most of it's ours now, and I don't know if we're equipped to handle this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one good news is that there are set license agreements, and most of these AIs use one of them. So usually at the top of Stable Diffusion, it's going to say MIT license. You can use it, but it can't be commercial or whatever. It's possible someone could write a clever license that tricks people. But if it wasn't one of these major licenses that we use for other things, they might have a very difficult time in court upholding it for anyone except for an established business. Even a personal proprietorship who accidentally used a tricky license might not have given what's called consideration to the contract. So I've only taken one class of business law. There's probably more to it. But basically, if I sign a contract, but I haven't fully considered it as a reasonable person, I don't know what benefit I'm getting out of it, and I don't know exactly what I'm paying. If a reasonable person wouldn't, or a lot of streamers don't, they'll probably rule in favor of those people as a reasonable set of people, depending on how reasonable the streamers are.
We also have a really strong ecosystem for being resilient to this, in that if enough people are using it, then via the user-generated content model, if everybody was going to stop using it and everybody was going to suddenly, then what would likely happen is that Twitch would have to get involved, YouTube would have to get involved, Facebook, Instagram, all these different places. And then what you have is this big, heavy legal hand being lifted over something that is a relatively nascent form, which is also in competition with other AIs, which are probably making more permissive, whichever one was deciding to be bold, so bold as to do that. What would happen is that the entire market would bully that company out. You probably wouldn't have to worry too hard about it.
Yeah. We go through this every 5 years with music on YouTube, right? I mean, they have incomprehensible licensing and a hugely litigious set of lawyers, and it's a problem, but it's not apocalyptic.
The with the music stuff, the interesting thing is the moderation tools, the AI based
Yeah,
moderation tools are really, really gameable, to the point where there are people
yeah,
whose job is to publish sound compilations of various things that they can then use to leverage various sound effects that used to be in the public domain, as because they are inside of this sound collage that is uploaded and licensed and turned private, as a way to take these big media pools. So like if you go online right now, you guys have like various sound effects that you could download that are inside of packs. If somebody takes those and then mixes them in the right way and publishes the thing, the way that the AI will work is that YouTube will flag and drain all finances from your video if you use that sound effect, even though they don't technically have legal right to do so, just because they're not using people. There's too much content. There's not enough to scan. Like
yeah.
that's a hugely exploitable
Gotcha.
market.
No, that's an
My
interesting point. But go ahead, please.
my job in social media is actually I'm a product manager building, among other tools, some of these high level DMCA, uh, not the AI, but the appeal systems.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's boy is it hard from our side. That's all I'll say about that as well. There's an impossible balance between all of these different laws, the speed at which people can manually look at things, and the amount of content people produce on social media. Is a totally insane problem. One of the
Okay,
big
gang.
ones.
Well, we're kind of winding down here.
Mhm.
We've kind of circled the drain on this topic. I wanted to give each of you a closing statement, closing thoughts on AI art and AI in general, and tell people where they can find you or the stuff that you produce, where they can go give you a follow, etc. Gang, if you've liked this content, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Really helps the algorithm. If you're following me on Twitch or Kick, hit that follow button. Consider donating if you enjoy this kind of content. Tomorrow, we have Brianna Wu, No Opinion. We're going to have Omar on, and we're going to have Tanky Characteristics. They're going to be talking about the Houthis situation in Yemen.
Boy.
Yeah, that should be fun. We'll see how it goes. So tune in then. It's not going to be at 6 p.m. It's going to be at 7 p.m. Eastern. So a little later than normal. Just because one of the people is in Europe, and I had to make some adjustments. But yeah, we're gonna start in the reverse order we started. We're gonna start with Victard, and we're gonna go around and let Blue end us off. Victard,
All
close us out. What do you got?
All right. I think I don't think AI art is gonna go anywhere. I think this thing is gonna progress and only get better. I think you can't really close Pandora's box. It's still, there are some problems. I hope that we get some solutions. I hope that maybe whatever regulation that needs to happen to kind of make sure this rolls out in a productive, fair way for everyone. I hope for the best. But I don't mean to be the boy who cried wolf. But he still got 8 in the end, so it didn't really work out for him.
Oh well.
You can follow me on Road to Hell on Instagram and Resident Trapper on X.
Check him out, gang. Thank you for being here. Next up, we have Tuna Chip. Please.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I'm making content here on Twitch. You can just do /TunaChip. Really easy to find. I've got links to Discord, YouTube, and Kick, all associated with the various socials. I'm streaming Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. We're constantly doing stuff, so come by anytime. As far as like a closing statement on this topic, artificial intelligence, machine learning, whatever you want to call it, this like new technological purchase, which is replacing a lot of intellectual human labor. It's got good, it's got bad. The real thing that we should be focused on is making sure that it doesn't create a massive humanitarian crisis by way of a economic break. Outside of that, this question of whether or not artists are being existentially attacked, or whether or not, you know, this, that, or the other, these like higher concepts, those aren't as big of a deal to me. Those will resolve themselves bit by bit. I think that people will find new mediums. Anyway, thanks for having me on. I will see you guys later.
Yeah.
And I am going to be streaming tonight after this, so if anybody's not doing anything, feel free to come by.
Okay, so we'll raid into Tuna Chip after this. Dingo, go ahead.
Right, I guess I'll just start with my concluding thoughts on the AI art stuff. I mean, some of the, I guess, the discussions about this topic that you see online can get really unbearable, and some of the logic starts to get kind of fuzzy on some arguments. And the issue is extremely, like, you know, polarizing, and it feels like everyone's trying to claw their way to a solution. But I think anyone who thinks that AI art won't become a serious problem in the future, or AI in general, especially with alignment, is in for a grisly surprise. And I don't think that for the opposing, that there's any ability for them to, I guess, put together the bare necessities to come with an argument, especially since a lot of the evidence around the topic is barely credible. And I think a lot of stuff around the topic to begin with is pretty poorly thought out. And, you know, I think the real solution to AI is just to pause for a moment and look back on everything that's been happening so far. And obviously, you don't want to characterize the opposition as, like, you know, salmons down the stream or whatever, but just the conversation otherwise just seems like complete pandemonium. And, you know, there's a lot of slippery fish reasoning. But yeah, I don't want to, you know, get everyone hibernating. So I guess I'll just say that tomorrow, the Streamer Politics Iceberg, it's a 2-hour-long documentary. It's got everything you love. It's got drama. And seriously, you won't believe how it ends. It's releasing exclusively on youtube.com/@DINGOKAY, Dingo K on YouTube. That's Dingo posting on Twitter. So the most high quality documentaries you can find out there on Streamer Politics. That's me. So make sure to watch those documentaries, like, subscribe, comment, all that. And remember, stay positive.
Well, thank you for being here. Appreciate you. And yeah, this was a bit of a fuzzy discussion, pretty unbearable, but we made it happen. Last up, Blue. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just want to say thanks for hanging out with me for a couple hours and chatting. This has been a lot of fun. Even a meandering discussion is like great. I think my final thoughts on this AI stuff, like I said, I tend to be very unfearful of these new technologies. There's been a lot of crazy stuff in the history of the human race in the last 200 years, and we've muddled our way through it. I think one of the big pieces of advice I'd have about this AI stuff is the piece of advice I give people about social media and all media in general, which is none of these things are selling you happiness in a real sense, and none of them are selling you truth. It's entertainment, and it seems like humans need about 3 to 5 hours of entertainment in a day, in addition to social stimulation and work. And don't confuse that with the important things in life, right? You're still going to have your families, the people who love you. If you paint me a picture, I'll tell you it's great, regardless of whether you generated it with AI or even if it's really great, because it's the right thing to do. So I think all of that's going to exist at the end of the day. And should we hit an apocalypse that destroys that, it won't be about AI art. It will just be the end of humans. So hopefully we don't hit that. But barring that, I think we're going to be fine. I don't have any social media or credentials, but you can find me around the Wick Discord as Blue, or any of the adjacent Discords.
Okay.
What's your
You'll
DeviantArt?
probably see me. I don't remember. I haven't opened it for like 4 years.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. Really
I love furry
appreciate
community,
you.
man.
It was fun. I will say
Also,
though,
DM me a picture.
I will say though in closing that if you like, I won't send my art to you because you
Your
will
music,
just
right?
tell me it's great, regardless of its quality. And I
That
don't
is
want that.
true.
I don't want that in
I'm
my
a
life.
liar.
If my work is shit, it needs to be said.
Harsh
It
critique.
needs to be told before I put it out. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock Eastern time. That's a big one. No opinion on. He's got I think he's the largest Substacker out there, right? He's got the
I'm a
most
fan.
subs
Oh,
on
yeah.
Substack. Great guy. He's really fun. Second time on the channel. So, it's always great when they come back, right? We didn't scare them off totally. Brianna Wu will be there. Omar will be there. Tinky Characteristics will be there. It should be fun. Check us out. We're going to send you over to Tone and Chip. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye.
See you guys.
Bye, guys. The Streamer Politics Iceberg. Okay. Oh, that was
Yo,
fantastic.
what's going on, Med? Thank you everybody for pouring
Tune in,
in.
chat.
Hey, if you guys wanna